How did I end up here? A friend recently asked me that and was like, look, you need to tell your own story because it's kind of crazy. So that is what we're going to talk about this week. So does that make me my own guest? I don't know. Just roll the theme. Thank you for tuning in. This, once again, I'm not going to start out with questions because I'm interviewing myself or just telling the story or whatever it is. Strange, nonetheless. What I'd like to kind of give you is some of my background, how I got to the podcast studios here, how we have this video production business, this photo production business, where we create content for businesses. That all being said, I am like most other, I wouldn't say YouTube creators, but most other people that are of the same age that I am, where we've got some personal videos on YouTube that are embarrassing from 10, 12, 13, 15 years ago, where it was just us, video cameras, and a couple of friends. I remember recording stuff on mini DV. The very first thing I recorded on my old VHS. This is a long time ago. Dug the camera out. Battery would last about 8 or 10 minutes, so you could get just a couple of shots. And then you'd have to have the computer process it into a digital thing. From there, I remember piecing things together in Vegas Video, an old version of Vegas Video that I had. And I mean, this is probably close to 20 years ago. Had a ton of fun with that. To me, it was about taking just memories that me and friends had created, many times, be it out on the jet ski or running vehicles through farm fields or whatever. And just putting those into clips, taking the best pieces of those and putting those into clips, setting them to music. So that way we could all just relive those moments and kind of re-enjoy those moments. So I've always had an interest in it. I've always had a bit of a love for it to me. And it really was just to showcase those things. I got out of it. I got away from it for a little while. Life got in the way, I guess you would say, but I still had this terrible old digital camera. It was a Hewlett Packard, an HP digital camera. That should tell you how old it was. And I still loved taking some photos with it and that. Fast forward to a number of years later. I mean, I had been through a number of industries. I had worked in the automotive industry. I was a technical rep in the performance side of the automotive industry. I was managing a number of automotive shops for a while. Was in management for a company that did performance for German vehicles. Took a break from that and moved into the realm of agriculture. Really enjoyed that, but the travel in the realm that I was at was just too much. It was time to come home. And I ended up in trucking because in agriculture, I picked up my CDL. Little known fact, I guess I would say for some of you about me is that, yes, I have my CDL. Yes, you may have seen me driving a truck because I would do that on occasion, but not as a truck driver. It was more or less part of the job of what I was doing because I ended up in trucking. I ended up at a company that sold Kenworth semi-trucks. I started out in basically it was a sales assistant position. It was my job to make sure that the stuff was online correctly or all the trucks were advertised correctly. I would occasionally have to go help pick up trucks, deliver trucks. But it didn't take long for me to really start to soak in some of the knowledge of the trucks and that. I'm a technical guy. I like numbers. Trucks, I mean, as a little kid, I played with trucks constantly. So to me, the interest was already there. So I would take the trucks and I learned a ton about them. And it wasn't long before other salesmen were taking me along on sales calls because they could start the introduction. They were great at the introductory part, which I was terrible at. As soon as it turned technical, most of the guys that were really like the, hey, how's it going type of guy would fall flat. Well, when it turned technical, that's when I would just leap forward in the conversation. That was that was totally where I was in my element. I thoroughly enjoyed that technical piece and liked talking technical about the trucks. When someone would ask a question about like engine dynamics, suspension, things, how they worked, I just loved explaining it. I also did enjoy, talking with some of these people. They all had such unique stories, unique backgrounds, things of that nature. Well, to take back half a step, when I was working as this sales admin position, boss is like, hey, we need to get these trucks online so they're advertised. And can you go outside and take a couple of photos? And having some knowledge of the photos and the video aspect of it, I'm like, sure. So I went out, took a couple of pictures, and he's like, wow, these look really, really good. I used some different angles. I changed how I shot things and to make the trucks look a certain way. They need to be appealing, right? We're trying to sell trucks online. Just walking out there, holding your cell phone up and snapping a photo. Well, okay, people know what the truck looks like. But you can really take that another step further to make that truck look better. There's features on them. Catch the chrome bits, but make sure your reflection's not in the chrome bits. It's those types of things. It's those types of extra steps that make the difference. Because we've all, if you've been around trucking, you've seen the photo of the front end of the truck and you can see the person taking the photo in the bumper. You're like, really? You didn't realize that your reflection was there? But nonetheless, that kind of evolved. I thought, well, what's a way that we could move this forward? And I remember doing video, and we actually had access to a copy of Vegas video back then still. So I used this cheap little point and shoot camera that just happened to have a video mode on it also. And I used that to go ahead and take some videos of the trucks. And the first few videos were rough, to put it politely. Rough would be the, like I said, that we're just going to leave it at that. Rough is the polite way to put that. But I used those as a great learning experience because I went back and I looked at stuff and I was like, well, that doesn't look great. What do I need to do to make this look better? And every video got better and better and better and better. Initially, I just started out with some shots of the truck and moved the camera around the truck and thought, well, okay, how's this going to look? And sometimes I would do a voiceover. Sometimes I would just do a couple of words on the screen, the bad graphics. And graphics aren't my forte. That's why we have someone within our company that does a phenomenal job on graphics. Graphics are her forte. So, but nonetheless, I would add some graphics. I knew that I had a decent voice for some of that stuff. So I would then do voiceovers and add some of that in. It then got to the point where I kind of got past that and I'm like, boy, this may be different if I got on camera. Because I'd done some research and I realized that video really is what helped connect people. You guys seeing me on camera, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you obviously aren't seeing me. But if you're watching this, you can see me. You know what I'm doing. You know my reactions. You know my mannerisms. You know how I'm engaging with you right now. And those big things play very much into a relationship. And I started to see that with some of the video stuff. So I ended up getting on camera, swallowed my dignity, swallowed my pride, and got on camera. And I kind of enjoyed it. Although I always make the joke, if you ever start to like yourself a little bit, film yourself for 8 hours and then watch that as you edit it for like the next 3 or 4 days. You will not like the person on the screen at the end of it at first. But I did. I got past that. And it turns out I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the full process too. I mean, to me, it was finding the right shots. It was finding the right, the way to show these trucks in the best light. Because first off, I'm not working in a studio. I was working in a parking lot. There's trucks going by. There's all sorts of other stuff. But I'm working in this parking lot trying to figure out how to make the best looking video I can and how to present these trucks in the best light. I ended up going into a sales position at the dealership then. And what was tough about that is there was a salesperson that was just allowed to do whatever the heck he felt like. We were assigned territories, but this guy was not. There's some reasons for this. There's some, we'll just say, some practices that weren't always above board by a number of people in the company. But it prevented me from being able to really sell trucks. So this is when I really made this big push with YouTube. I sent a number of trucks to different places out of state. I sent 7 or 8 trucks to Pennsylvania. I sent 15 plus trucks to Chicago in 2 separate orders to the same client that just loved my videos. To me, that was just a huge thing, and it was a breakthrough. It allowed me, at that point, we talked about it, to say, look, I should be doing the marketing for the entire dealership network, not just myself. So at that point, my official title was marketing manager for all 5. It was 4 at that point, and we were working on building our 5th dealership. Just before that, though, I had written out a business plan. I really liked this video stuff, and I had done some stuff here and there for other people. And what I found is I really loved talking to people. I really loved hearing people's stories. The interview pieces of it, to me, I just absolutely loved. I mean, I could walk out of something like that just feeling amazing, like, oh my God, I love doing this. And then when I'd be like, oh my God, I'm getting paid to do this. Holy cow, was that absolutely amazing. So I wrote out a business plan that said in 3 to 5 years, you're going to do this full time. And when I wrote out that business plan, I wasn't sure that was going to happen. I was I wasn't always happy working for someone else. I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. And I thought, well, how's this going to happen? What's going to happen? I just didn't know. I was later offered a position that paid the same amount as what I was making as a marketing and operations manager to work for a company that was going to have me be as an online personality and editor doing automotive and motorcycle stuff. Had been a while since I had a motorcycle. I was kind of looking for a reason to get back into them. And what a better reason to get back into motorcycles than work, right? So with that being said, I took this position. I was not a fit at the company. Once again, I am putting this very politely. There is a big, long story attached to that in terms of why I made this switch. It was probably, I would say, the second most stressful 4 months of my entire life. This was a toxic environment. And I used to hire people, and I thought I was a pretty good screener of that. I may have been blinded by thinking, hey, great, I get to come into this cool opportunity where I get to do what I love, and in an industry I love even more than what I'm doing. It seemed almost too good to be true, and I guess I would say I probably should have seen some of that writing on the wall, but it was. I was not a fit there at all. I'm an operations guy, former operations guy. What I always like to say, there's a process. There's a start, there's a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. They referred to their process as a bowl of spaghetti, but it always works. And it rarely worked. It would usually just wring people out like an old washing machine. And the product that would come out would show that. So here I am 4 months into this, and I didn't know what to do. And I was like, you know what? I put on my business plan in 3 to 5 years, I'm going to go full time. And I thought, well, shoot, it's been 3.5 years. Is now the time? So I had put in my 2 weeks notice at this company. I wanted to leave on good terms. I still freelanced with them for a short term after that. And what was interesting is when I was pondering this leave, I reached out to someone that wanted me to do videos for them before with the trucking stuff, but I couldn't because there was a conflict because I was with Kenworth at that point in time. And I reached back out to them and I said, hey, I'm in a situation now where I could do the videos for you guys. And they're like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I talked with the owner of the company. And he's like, okay. He goes, let me bring it up to the staff and see what we think. He goes, I think we're going to say yes. But he goes, I want to bring it up to everyone and make sure. So I am on my way up to negotiate my freelance contract with this company that I was leaving. And like I said, I was not leaving on great terms. I was going to freelance with them some. If I didn't get that, I was okay with walking out of the door. I mean, the only way that you can negotiate is if you're willing to walk. And I was very willing to walk with nothing out of that door. What made that so much easier was I was on my way upstairs to that meeting with the CEO, the vice president, the person from HR, and my boss. And my phone rings and I see it as that truck client. And I'm like, oh boy. So I pick up the phone. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And he goes, great. He goes, I'm walking into a meeting. Just wanted to let you know. He goes, we're in. We're going to do all those videos with you. And I was like, great. I'll be in touch next week and we'll go from there. He's like, awesome. Looking forward to it. It was everything that I had in me, not to just jump up and down and scream like I had just won the world championship, because at that moment, I knew I was going to start to figure this thing out. And I knew that even if I wasn't necessarily going to be okay, I knew I had a path forward, and I knew I had time to start working on things and time to start figuring things out. So I started with them. I had a few other jobs lined up, a few other things lined up. Clients like that are still on with me today. We picked up a few other items too that have been amazing. And that is when the video business really started for me. I went full time, both feet in. I had some stuff that I had been doing. I had some people that I had been working with. But it wasn't enough to sustain everything. So it was starting out frantic, like, oh my gosh, where is the next check coming from? How am I going to keep the lights on? Knowing that I had this trucking client, knowing that I had one or two other clients lined up with some pretty good video projects that I was, first off, excited to do. The second piece about it was the fact that I knew that these projects were going to be able to sustain me for a number of months. Why I continued to work on the business was a huge, huge, huge thing for me. So I'm doing the photo and the video, and I'm picking up every single job that I can. I even was doing some real estate photography there too. There was a number of realtors that I knew, had reached out to them, was connected with some of them. Taught myself how to do real estate photography in order to fill that in. I mean, it was great fill in the gap work for me. Show up at a home, get paid after you do and edit the photos. It worked. It's those types of things that kept me going. A lot of those projects now, they don't fit as well with what we do. But I'm still so grateful for the fact that I had those opportunities, and I was able to learn so much in those opportunities too. I learned how to look at a room for video by doing real estate photo. Sounds weird, but it's helped me out immensely. In the same sense, I went out and spent the time and money and effort to get my FAA Part 107 drone license. So that way I could offer drone services legally and professionally and be insured and the whole 9 yards. So that way the clients that I wanted to go after didn't have to worry. They knew that they would just say, here's what we would like. Great. I'll show up. It's taken care of. There's no worries for them. The thing that I found as I continued to do this was that I loved the stories. When I got to sit down with someone like the Barberton Community Foundation and do their Game Changer Awards, and I get to hear the stories from these people, I was just in awe. And I've started to learn that pretty much everyone has their own story. Everyone has something about them that is interesting. To me, it's been refining that art of how to get that interesting story out of them. And it's one of the things that I love the most is that challenge. It's finding those interesting stories. And that kind of led me to the podcast studios where I'm sitting right now. And this podcast, this has given me the opportunity to hear so many more stories at such a different level. And the thing that I love about it too is that we're helping businesses in the process, because we really do. We take the pain out of that content creation. We make it so much easier for businesses to create content on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And in that process, I get to hear some of these stories. I get to hear how the business is started. I get to hear how some of the things continue. I got to sit down and listen the other day to how a franchise works and how, there's a franchise that helps franchisees find franchisors. And I got to hear about how that worked. I have people in my studio that have had unreal experiences. I've had someone in my studio that was like she flew out in the very last C-130 to leave Afghanistan as the U.S. was pulling out. And now this young woman helps younger women that are now refugees into America adapt. These are people that I would never have heard or seen their stories had I not had these studios, had I not started this video business. And to me, that is why I am so grateful every day for what I get to do. And it's also why I'm so grateful that I've got the studios, because it gives me the ability to sit across from people and to ask them questions. And that, I guess you would say, is my story. Whether you found it interesting or not, I hope so. To me, I have thoroughly enjoyed my story. I've been, over the past couple of years, very intentional about making sure it's an interesting one and making sure it's a story that I want to write. And I think I'm doing okay with it. With that all being said, I have some very, very interesting guests coming up over the next couple of weeks. I've spent a lot of time with these people. They are very near and dear to my heart. And that probably means that they're also pretty entertaining too. So do me a favor, make sure that you're subscribed or follow and all the other things. If you could, write a review. I'd love to get your feedback. I'd love to hear your comments on what you'd like to see in the future, what information you'd like about podcasting, what information you'd like that could be business specific. Would love to hear all of it. That being said, make sure that you take care of yourself. And if you can, take care of someone else. I will see you really soon.